everyone. This is the first of a series of videos that will analyse the scenes in Act 4 of King Lear. So how I'm going to structure the presentations is basically I've divided up each scene into sections based on lines, and I've indicated these lines here on my screen at the moment, 4.1.1 to 4.1.29 for example as the first one. So what I'll do with each section is I'll try to briefly go over the plot, so what's actually happening in the story at the time, and then the second part of that will be my link to themes, any particular quotes or lines. You might find, this is my first go at this, so you might find I'll end up kind of overlapping the whole lot and just kind of fluidly talk about them all, but I'll try to distinguish the two if I can. So let's get started on scene 1. So we're looking at the beginning of the scene from line 1 through to about line 29. And every now and then I'll probably look down because I've got my notes in front of me here as reference, and I'm also holding up the microphone to my face just to make sure that it's nice and clear. So any feedback after this is really appreciated. So let's get cracking. So in this first scene of the act, Edgar comes onto stage and he's still disguised as the crazy poor Tom, but he speaks this soliloquy when he's not mad. And he's essentially standing in the wind and he's reflecting that he is now the lowest of the low, but that really things can only get better from here. The lowest and most dejected thing of fortune, he says in line 3. After he's said this, he sees an old man, and this old man is leading the blinded Gloucester, so Edgar's dad. And Gloucester, the whole time that the old man is leading him along, is saying to him, just leave me alone. I just want to die. Basically, he says, I have no way and therefore want no eyes. So that's on page 204 around line 17, 18. The old man says, you cannot see your way. And he says, I have no way and therefore want no eyes. And he keeps speaking and he's basically lamenting his misjudgment of Edgar. And he says how much he really wants to meet his son once more. He says at the end of that, might I but live to see thee in my touch, I'd say I had eyes again. That's the last little bit of his speech there. And the old man then actually catches sight of Edgar. And Edgar says to himself, I shouldn't have said I was the lowest of the low. Who can say I'm the worst? I'm not. And so the old man then tells Gloucester that they had found this sort of poor Tom character. So in the next lot of lines, down here from line 30 to the end of the scene, line 75, the old man has told Gloucester that they found this poor Tom, this Edgar who's disguised, and they're talking together, Gloucester, the old man, and Edgar. And Gloucester is sort of saying how the previous night he had seen a mad beggar who had made him think man to be a worm. So we're getting that reference to animals again. And he sort of says how he's learned about how low humans can go. And he describes them as flies to wanton boys are we to the gods. They kill us for their spot. For their sport. So we're looking at around lines 36, 37, page 205. So this real dehumanization, the fact that humans can inflict a lot of suffering. He still does not recognize that the madman that he saw was in fact his son. So he sends the old man who was leading him back to fetch some clothes for poor Tom, who is naked, and in a lot of productions he is often naked. Gloucester offers poor Tom all the money in his purse to take him to the cliffs of Dover. Now remember, Dover was where Cordelia was, but what he's actually going there to do is to commit suicide. So just to go over that a little bit more, Gloucester, when he first saw poor Tom, describes him as a worm. That's what he thought he was, as low as a worm. But really, he realizes that all men are like worms in the eye of the gods. They're just playthings that are there to be killed for fun. And in the face of all the terrible things he has done and the things that he's seen, Gloucester is desperate, and he's just despairing, and he wants only to cease to exist. And there's this great line that Gloucester says on page 206. I think it's line 47, 46, 47. He says, "'Tis the time's plague when mad men lead the blind." And I think it's just this lovely metaphor for the deterioration of society that's inescapable, that all men are at the hands of the gods and are playthings to them. And then it goes on to say that he's going to get clothing for poor Tom, and he'd like to be taken to Dover to die. So at the end of that scene, he says, "Here, take this purse." So we're looking at around lines 58. "Thou whom the heavens plagues," an oxymoron there. And he says, "Take me there, and there is a cliff whose high and bending head looks fearfully in the confined deep." So we're looking at lines 68, 69. And then towards the end of Gloucester's lines, he says, "From that place I shall no leading need." So he's saying, I'm gonna jump off the cliff there. And it's really quite sweet that Edgar sort of ends and says, "Give me thy arm, poor Tom shall lead thee." And I feel like, for me personally, this action really proves that Edgar is the good son. Okay, and that brings us to the end of scene 1.